Hello and welcome to the Papare.com. We are very, very privileged to have with us a two-time Coach of the Year, a World Cup winning coach, a man who has coached not just the All Blacks but also the British Lions and taken them to series victories, World Cup wins, a man with plenty of experience to talk to us about rugby, not just rugby but coaching and life in general. He's also been a headmaster of school, so he knows what it's like to manage young men, older men, all of that kind of thing. And we're very privileged to welcome to the Papare today, Sir Graham Henry.
Pleased to be here.
Lovely to have you, Graham. And it's been, your third visit here to Sri Lanka? Does it keep surprising you?
It's a beautiful island and lovely people. And we've been hosted by Dilma T in previous visits. My wife Raven and I are ambassadors. We're ambassadors for Dilma and New Zealand. We've really enjoyed it. But the people are very friendly, make you feel very welcome. I'm into rugby, as you may know. And I've been very impressed with the school's rugby. Saw Trinity play Royal in 2013 in the big game. 27,000 people, Jonathan Kaplan refereeing, amazing.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the big schools really value the game of rugby for their boys. And I don't know, maybe girls. So that's amazing.
So it's been the first visit here for the New Zealand under-25s, a representative team. They've got their silver fern. That was something that you had to campaign for a bit with New Zealand rugby, Graham. And how do you see under-85 rugby or weight class rugby taking off as a global phenomenon?
Well, I'm hoping it will. Well, I think it's probably Australia, New Zealand and Asia. The Asian countries would have a very strong under-85 teams, or we could play national teams like the Sri Lankans playing New Zealand under-85, Australian under-85. It's important to me to try and keep these young men in the game. They're quality rugby players. They're not big enough to play probably international rugby, or they may have other major interests. So this is a recreation for them. But it keeps them in the game and they become the future referees maybe, or coaches or administrators or lovers of the game, and their kids play. So I think community rugby is very important that we get that base right, and this is part of that. So this is the first time an underweight New Zealand side has ever been selected, and so I'm delighted about that, and hopefully it will continue in the future.
Well, it's the Sir Graham Henry Trophy between Sri Lanka and the New Zealand under-85s. And given how things went last Saturday with a 40-point margin, you have to imagine you're going to be giving away that trophy to Jared Percival unless Sri Lanka pull up something special on Saturday.
Well, you never get complacent. If you get complacent, that's the greatest evil in sport. Complacency. So, but Sri Lanka will pick their best team for this weekend, I assume. And so they were trying some younger players or new players to the team last week. So I would imagine it'll be a far greater contest. Like the New Zealand under-85 team last weekend played some very, very good rugby. Like, I was amazed how good they were. And I was nervous before the game that they wouldn't be good enough to give the Sri Lankans a game of rugby. So that was a big turnaround for me. And so this week, let's see what happens. So there'll be the top Sri Lankan side playing.
And you might have had a little bit of skepticism from New Zealand. An under-85 team, what does that even mean? Should they be given representative status? Maybe there were some skeptics back home. What has their reception been to not only seeing the performance of the New Zealand under-85s, but also seeing the atmosphere, seeing what Sri Lanka brought to that whole party up there in Littavilla? What has been some of the feedback immediately?
Well, I haven't got a lot, to be fair.
That's new.
But no, I think, the way the under-85 team played the game was brilliant. And I think it's a message out there to rugby that the game can be played superbly with a focus on skill and athleticism. Still, you need some physicality to get the base, but they played the game as well as it can be played, I think. Give them 9 out of 10.
Okay.
All right? And I think the message is that we need to make sure our community game is strong, and these guys are part of the community game. And if the community game is strong foundation, the professional game will keep on flourishing. And so that's the message as far as I'm concerned. I see our New Zealand under-20s are playing well in a championship, Argentina, Australia, South Africa. So that's good, part of the community game. So I just think New Zealand rugby needs to continue to focus on making sure the community game is strong. And what a great message here. Young men from New Zealand who were probably good first 15 players at their schools, who have got other major focuses and not big enough to play international rugby for the All Blacks, giving a message on how the game can be played superbly, and a message that the community game is important.
Absolutely. One thing we really did take away from the weekend was that skill trumps size, maybe not at the elite level, but certainly at this level, Graham. And that's a message also out to the rest of Asia, isn't it? We're not the biggest blokes in the world. In India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Japan, across China, people would struggle to maybe reach 85, 90 kilos, but this gives everyone an opportunity for rugby to become far more an entrenched system of sport in this massive continent.
Yes, like there's talk since I've been here about having a tournament of Asian countries, maybe Australia and New Zealand under 85s being there. I think that would be fantastic. Like we're trying to grow the game, and it's growing, isn't it? Like look at Portugal, look at Spain, Georgia, could go on. The game is in great heart here. As far as interest is concerned, the Sri Lankan national team, they will want to continue to improve, but there's a massive amount of interest in rugby in Sri Lanka. And I think that's probably the same in Malaysia, same in Singapore, same in Hong Kong, definitely same in Korea. Japan just won a world secondary school competition. The top 4 teams in the competition that was held in Japan, but it was teams from South Africa and England and New Zealand and so on. They got the 4 teams in the semi-final all from Japan, a world secondary school competition. So the game is in great heart in Asia. We just need to keep on growing, and everybody will benefit from that.
Well, big dreams. Let's hope that world-class rugby will be something that will take off in this part of the world, and if it does, we would certainly have to thank this inaugural tour of the New Zealand under-85s for it lent its name by Sir Graham Henry, of course. Let's talk a little bit more about the actual stuff on the pitch, Graham. What would you have said to Sanath Martis, Sri Lanka's national coach, at the end of the game? From a coaching point of view, what are your words to him looking forward to the second test?
Oh, I don't think I should go down there. Maybe we should have this interview after the second test. We don't want to give them a team talk, do we?
Hoping
no, as I said before, the secondary school game is in great heart, and I'm sure that lots of people are trying to transfer that into the national team, and there's all sorts of resources required to do that. You know, there's money resource obviously, and the players who have got ambition to be top international rugby players need to be able to live well, to train well and so on. So I guess it's how do you continue to fund the game so that you have a top international side. I think the human resource is very important. If you get the right people involved there, I think that would be massively helpful. So I don't know the Sri Lankan coaches. They could be the best in the world. I don't know, but I think that resource, that people resource, but people of knowledge, not only of the game itself, but the strength and conditioning, the right medical people. So it's very professional with the right people resource.
And you've coached teams, Graham, at the highest possible level, but you've also coached two countries that are small in size, very few people, but also have a disproportionate passion for the game in Wales and New Zealand. Can you tell us a little bit more about the similarities between those two countries and maybe even Sri Lanka, and tell us how that kind of translates into success?
Well, they just, it's their national sport. Rugby is the national game in New Zealand and Wales. Very passionate about the game, but a lot of legacy, a lot of history. So you've got that base, and you've got the same base here, which amazes me. You know, the passion for rugby in this country is enormous. Not as big as cricket, obviously, and so how do you convert that passion for the game into success with the national team? New Zealand have been able to do that, you know, for long periods of time, and we have our challenges. I think the world of rugby is getting stronger. The French look very good. The South Africans are obviously the best in the world. The Irish play a great game of rugby. So I think there's a lift in standards across the world. So that's a real challenge for the All Blacks. The Welsh are going through some really difficult times, which is very sad. And I guess it's about making sure the development process is right. Like in Ireland, you've got a large number of private boys' schools or traditional boys' schools, and that's their nursery. In Wales, there's I think only 3 private boys' schools in South Wales. So they haven't got the same structure as Ireland. So how do they develop their young players? And I'm sure they've been asking this question for about 30 years. Hopefully they can find the right answers. I see they've appointed a new person in charge of the game there, of the professional game. And hopefully they can get the right structures in place so the development is superb and Wales come back and be a very competitive nation again.
Well, let's hope so. Speaking about being competitive, New Zealand the first to reach 3 World Cups. South Africa, of course, have done it the second time around, and maybe the first to go in for a 4th. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see for a couple more years. But to talk about New Zealand's golden generation, this is the gentleman who coached them. 2011, 24 years since you won your first World Cup. It was a long wait. Graham, I think the New Zealand media, and us included, for those of us who support the All Blacks in this part of the world, were champing at the bit, waiting and waiting and waiting. Sterling Mortlock in 2003, Christophe Dominici in 2007, but finally it was 2011, it was your time. How did it feel to finally bring that cup back?
What a difference a point makes. I was fortunate enough to be reappointed after 2007 when we got beaten in the quarter-final. And I think you learn a lot from those things. Difficult game. Let's not go into the detail of that. But you learn that you just got to overcome challenges at the time to be World Cup champions. And in 2007 we had difficulty with the interpretation of the laws in the quarter-final. So that, let's move on from there. So we had a little saying, the unexpected will happen, handle it. And the unexpected was that game in 2007. The unexpected in 2011 happened to be injury. So we had injury to 3 number 10s, our playmakers, and Steve Donald finished up playing in the final. Richie McCaw had a broken foot, broken metatarsal. And so just overcoming those sort of challenges, because to be fair, Daniel was one of the best players in the world at the time, and he was probably worth 20 points to us. And so just having the backbone to be able to handle those adversities at the time and still do the job was a big catch cry for 211. Also, I think we got better mentally. We got stronger mentally when we were under pressure, and we worked very hard on that for 4 years. And that was a result of 2-7 where we couldn't handle the pressure. So I think, like all things in life, you're always trying to get better, trying to improve, and we did in some areas, and so that enabled us to win the World Cup. But we also had a wee bit of luck, and we had no luck in 2-7, but we had a bit of luck in 2-11, and it's part of it. Let's be honest.
It all evens out.
Yeah, it evens out.
Tell me how much of that came from the players, Graham, in terms of after 07. You had Richie McCaw, who was one of the greatest leaders that the All Blacks have ever seen. How much of it came from him sitting you down and saying, look mate, I don't want to go through that again. What do we do to stop that? And how much of it was top down from you?
Like we had a leadership group through from 2-4 right through to 2-7 and then on to 2-11. Some of the personnel changed because some people retired and so on. That leadership group was made up of 13 people, 7 players, including Richie obviously, and 6 management. And we discussed those things, and the changes after 2-7 were decided by that leadership group and then discussed with the team. The little phrase, the unexpected will happen, handle it, came from those leadership meetings. The change in our mental approach, in our mental toughness and how we were going to enhance that came from that leadership group. So it was a combination. I think we learnt more from each other than anything else. You know, just you had very good young men as players. If I remember rightly, probably guys like Kevin Mialamu, Andrew Hoare, Brad Thorne, Richie McCaw obviously, Daniel Carter, Conrad Smith, Mills Miliaina. You get those people together, and with Steve and Wayne, Steve Hansen and Wayne Smith and myself and Gilbert Anoka and others, it's a pretty strong group on rugby DNA. And so you discuss the challenge where you're at and hopefully look ahead and say, what do we need to keep on being the best in the world? So it's a constant process of team and self-improvement.
You mentioned Gilbert Inoka, and he was a later addition to the coaching group, I think, the mental skills coach. How much do you think players need to focus on that, and how much do they actually do focus? Everyone loves to go to the gym and they've got metrics that they can write down on a piece of paper, but mental skills, what is that about?
I think it's critical. The whole combination of the strength and conditioning and the mental skills program. We had Kerry Evans. We invited Kerry. He's now the mental skills coach of the All Blacks. But Kerry Evans was an ex-New Zealand football captain, a psychiatrist, a black belt in karate, who we invited into the leadership group meeting after 2-7 and told him what the challenges were, that we froze in the quarterfinal. Why we froze is let's not discuss that, but we froze and we weren't good enough to handle that. And he with our discussions, we came up with the unexpected will happen, handle it, and the program for enhancing our mental strength. Also, I think we were complacent in 207. Like we hadn't lost a game for a long time. We'd beaten the French by a big score 3 or 4 months prior to that quarter-final. I think we thought we were just going back to France to play the semi. So, you know, as I said, did I say that before? Complacency is the worst evil in sport.
Yep.
So we had a bit of complacency.
In terms of coaching, Graham, how do you identify complacency before it kind of becomes the liability that it became? How do you look at a group and say, okay, I'm not liking the way this guy is approaching practice, or I didn't like the way that interaction happened. I need to now address this before it becomes a problem.
I think, if you had that ability to put your finger on that every time, you'd be a genius.
Well, you are.
And I'm not a genius.
We've been told you are.
No, whoever's been telling you that is exaggerating a huge amount. No, you sometimes get a feel they're not right, and sometimes you're wrong on that. I think it's something that comes from the group. I think having that leadership group and having 7 players with that massive responsibility, they lead together and lift the standards, and hopefully with the coaches they've got a feel for that. But some weeks you don't prepare as well as you hope you would, or the coach hoped they would, and they play well. And other weeks they were brilliant in the training and don't play so well. So it's always difficult to get a finger on the pulse. You think you have, but sometimes you're wrong. I guess that's coaching. That's coaching. But I think the big thing is that we were able to give players additional responsibility, give them ownership, something that took me about 30 years to learn. The more ownership you give the players, the better they contribute and the better they play. Not only did we have the 7 leaders in the leadership group, we had individual operating units. So depending on where they played in the team. So we had 6 of those, like the fullback and the 2 wingers were an operating unit. And the leader of those operating units wasn't in the leadership group. So there's another 6 players leading. And we had a mentoring system where older players mentor younger players, which was fabulous. And the old players got a lot out of it, as well as the young guys, like Brad Thorne and Owen Franks, around 211. Owen was a young tight head prop and Brad was a lock who had had years of experience, and just passing on that experience. So there's a lot of players taking additional responsibility, which I think adds to their game, adds to the team, makes it more complete.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because in Sri Lanka we have very much a hierarchical culture where you kind of listen to your coach and you do as you're told. So in terms of taking responsibility and accountability and ownership, it's not something that's automatic for a lot of especially cool school kids and even some of the semi-professionals we have playing. So when you say it took 30 years to learn for you, Graham, when did the penny drop? When did you realize that having a headmasterly approach, if I can...
Well, you're a very intelligent man, obviously.
Thank you.
No, I was lucky. I coached good teams for a long time. So I coached Auckland Grammar First 15, I coached University Rugby Club. That was challenging at times. Coached Auckland Colts, coached Auckland the Blues. And it wasn't until I got to Europe, where Wales weren't the best team. But they were a great group of young men, and some of them were very talented. They had talent, but they weren't the best team in Europe. Hadn't beaten the French for 20 odd years. In France, England was always a challenge. Everybody was a challenge. And the British and Irish Lions, tour of Australia in 2001. The Australians were the world champions from '99. They were the best team in the world. And so we didn't win everything.
For the first time in your career?
Yeah, sort of. And I thought, and we didn't, so we had some challenging games and some losses. We lost the third test against the Wallabies and 2-1 for the Lions. And those sort of situations you think, oof, I could have done the job better. What am I doing here? You know, you're driving this from the front. There must be a better way. So then I started to think about it and thought I've got to share responsibility a lot more. And I had some mental challenges at the time. I won't go into those details. And I thought I love the game, I love coaching, I wanted to continue to do it. And I thought if I'm going to continue to do it, at this stage, I'm 55 at the end of the Lions tour. So I'm reasonably mature, much older than you, I would imagine.
Not a lot, 8 years.
So I started to think, and then I got some like-minded people. I was lucky enough to get the All Blacks. And guys like Wayne Smith and Gilbert Anoka and company, we were very like-minded about giving the players more and more responsibility and driving the bus from the back of the bus rather than the front of the bus. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just lifting the responsibility of everybody and the young guys getting a greater resource to help them. And that greater resource was their fellow players, just the more experienced ones. So it was a change in philosophy caused by difficult times, difficult results, adversity. And we learnt from 207, the adversity of 207, at 211. Individuals learn from adversity from their own experiences. You learn a lot more from adversity than you do from success.
That's a truism, Graham. I'm certainly not going to dispute that, but sometimes there is an unwillingness to learn, even from adversity or bad experiences. There is a tendency to go inward, start blaming external circumstances. How do you recognize that in yourself?
I don't know how to answer that question. If you're passionate about it and you want to continue, and if you don't have a self-improvement program and realise that's part of the deal, you're kidding yourself. And if you blame others for your own inadequacies, you're never going to achieve the ultimate, I guess. Life's a learning process, and we are constantly learning, aren't we? And probably education needs to stress that. Life's an ongoing process of learning and trying to improve yourself, and that's stimulating for the people around you. And if everybody did that, we'd be perfect, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we certainly would. We'd at least be halfway there.
Wow, that sounds like a very arrogant statement, doesn't it? But no, that was part of it. And because I was so passionate about that job of coaching sport, coaching rugby, I guess it became reasonably natural,
Yeah. And when you are passionate about coaching sport, it doesn't matter whether it's rugby or basketball or swimming, it's making young people better, isn't it? That's what you're really passionate about at your core.
Yeah, well, initially it was about me, you see. I hope people are not going to listen to this.
but that's a really vulnerable confession, Graham.
And then I had a massive amount of respect for the people I coached. But then you realise it's more about, if I can get help these guys to grow, we're going to have a much better team and hopefully much better results. And how do you help them to grow? And I haven't got all those skills. And you get other people involved, like Gilbert Anoka was outstanding. But the older players are outstanding. Wayne Smith and Steve Hansen are outstanding. Mike Cron. I haven't mentioned Mike Cron.
Mick Byrne.
Yeah, Mick Byrne, great skills coach when I was, yeah. So everybody had a little role to play here, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle, put it all together and hopefully you finish it and it's complete. It's never complete, that's the problem. You're always looking for another piece. And that's the challenge, isn't it? Like I understand what you said before about the Sri Lankan mindset of the boss and the people doing as they're told. And I'm sure that was part of New Zealand rugby for a long time. And that's how I grew up. And that's how I coached initially. But to get them to the ultimate, things need to slowly change and empower these people with the skills to take ownership. And that's a fabulous challenge. Just took me a long time to learn it.
Well, they say the smartest people learn from other people's experiences, Graham, and you've given us so much to think about in this talk. And we're really looking forward to the next test as well. And we're really happy at the fact that you've given your name to this trophy and it's being played for the first time here in Sri Lanka, and that you're a champion for weight class rugby and community sport. We are so privileged to have you here.
Thank you. No, just to finish, I was very fortunate to get a lot out of the game. And when you get to 100, you just want other young people to have the same experiences that you did. Because it changed my life. And these young guys on this tour, they'll remember this for the rest of their lives. And you just want to give young people great experiences. And this vehicle is rugby. And I think that's what sport's about.
We're very glad to have people like you in it, Graham, who are willing to share their experience with their learnings and be vulnerable and tell everyone else that you weren't perfect to start off with and you don't need to be. I think that's the biggest lesson we've taken out.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to find that.
Thank you very much, man.
Okay.
Cheers. Sir Graham and Reed. We're done.